I always have the honor of introducing none other than Paul Whitley, who, of course, is the chair of the C-Suite Support Council. He has tremendous heart and passion for seeing people succeed. And as a fractional CFO, one of the pieces of advice I always give is stay close to your financials. You want to stay close to Paul. He is absolutely focused on how we have our businesses grow and look at the exponential opportunities in terms of our financials and how we're making them work for us. So, Paul, I'm going to hand things over. Thank you so much for taking it away today.
All right. Well, thank you, Tricia. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing a young man that I met, I'm going to say 8 years ago when we did our first podcast together. I had the joy of having that podcast and the pleasure of calling him friend, Steven Guilfoile. Stephen is the CEO of Affordicare Insurance. It's a nationwide group. They do, I believe, they're up to 27,000 brokers in the group. I mean, I don't know if you can still count that high, Stephen, but I appreciate the fact that we do have the opportunity of saying friend. Stephen has quite a background in growing this, and you can tell this is a young man. I mean, I'm not a young man. And I look at this young man and what he's accomplished over a short period of time of building this company. He's got 58 locations nationwide. They've at this point their savings they've done for clients is representing about 2.4 billion in savings. And yeah, I've taken him to many of our clients. I got two more that we're in conversation with right now to take to him because in every client situation, he's been able to save at least 15% on the premium cost, except one. And he swears they didn't give me good information. So, with that, Stephen, let me ask you to say hello and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Man, 8 years ago, Paul, it makes me feel old. I don't know what that's even like, but it's creeping up there. So it's been a joy knowing you all these years too, and it's been again pleasure letting you have me on the show too. And I think what you guys do at C-Suite is incredible. Again, at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's all about relationships, and it doesn't matter what you sell. It doesn't matter what your product is. If you have people and great people in your corner, it will always work out for everybody. Just doing it the right way, like you guys have. So thanks again for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm just waiting for one of our podcasts for you to walk in with a cheese head on your head. Uh, it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I was all excited to rub it in, and if you guys watched Monday Night Football last night, you'd know that I just haven't had time to burn everything else behind me yet. But we're working out. We'll recover next week.
Well, I know you've had the opportunity of being interviewed in media platforms with CBS, Fox, ABC, Forbes, etc. So I appreciate you sharing your time with Tricia, myself, in putting this together. As you know, we're fractional CFOs, and we're trying to help companies grow as well as save money where they can save money. So today we're going to kind of turn this thing over into reclaiming control of your healthcare cost. Without cutting care. And that's one of the main things. When every client I'm taking you into, we end up having at least as good of care as they have, and in many cases, you're able to improve the care and reduce the cost. And we're going to talk about that pretty much in depth here in a few minutes. But most executives this point, they just think it is what it is. I'm going to have to live with it. I've got to deal with it. I don't know what to do about it. Can't do anything. So they just keep on going by. And that's our job as CFOs to bring their attention to it, and your job to cut their costs. So tell us about that, and tell us about the craziness of the annual renewal shock.
Yeah, well, obviously, when you get into insurance, it's kind of one of the most boring subjects on the surface of it. But at the end of the day, it's probably one of the most important things that a business deals with, right? Most times people get into business, right, because they're passionate about something that they love to do, whether it's, mechanic or doing stuff with, anything, right? At the end of the day, though, when you think about after the cost of the wages, the major medical premiums are the most expensive second cost that most businesses deal with, right? And so when you have then nothing else in your business is going up 10, 20, 30% every single year like clockwork, right? And so it is worth a discussion to kind of talk about and reflect on, like, am I actually looking at every single option, and am, the way that I'm having the structured, is it done the right way, right? And so I think that, just kind of seeing it as part of business, and if you could make this much money doing something else, if you could take a very small portion of that time and save way, way more than that and have that be sustainable, that's what we've really been about. And I think that's why it's important to talk about.
Well, I do too. And, some of our clients, they're on the Affordicare. And there's been a lot of conversation about that from, the government issues, the shutdown, et cetera. And in all that dialogue, they're talking about how much the people are going to have to pay. Now, usually the company's paying some large percentage of this, and the employee's going to have to pay some percent. But if they're on the Affordicare, the employee is one paying all of it. Well, the unique thing that I saw, because we've gotten involved in some of them, the average increase of the premium, not the Affordicare factor of it, but the base premium I'm seeing is going up 37%. Has nothing to do with the subsidies, nothing to do with Affordicare. So the insurance companies are taking advantage of this situation, I think, driving the cost up. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the Affordicare subsidies that's going to be there, but what they're not bringing forward is approximately 4% of the additional adjustments of COVID, not the whole Affordicare. So it's been misrepresented so badly, but it really goes back to the base price before subsidies even start is going up unbelievably high. The Affordicare did not help drive down insurance rates. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and I think it's what people kind of seem to miss. And I think, right, part of the problem, regardless of what political aisle you're on, at the end of the day, like, still things cost money and someone needs to pay for it. And when you think about like how people view every other type of insurance in their life, whether it be from life insurance to car insurance to house insurance, every single one of these things, there's an insurance company that's taking in information and giving you a rate and a price based on the risk that they're taking on, right? And so, like, it's why we know that, hey, if I have a hailstorm, and I get a new roof, I'm going to pay more money in premiums. If I get a fender bender with my car and I report it, car insurance is going to go up, right? And so we have this weird thing in healthcare, and again, same thing with life insurance too, right? If I'm coming on the plan and I have major health issues, my life insurance is going to cost more than somebody in perfect health because there's more risk, right? And so that's what ultimately insurance is, right? And when you think about on the ACA marketplace and a lot of employer groups, it's one price for every person. And of course, when you're just having that and you have to, by nature, when you're not asking any questions up front, you have to give it at the highest possible rate imaginable because you have to account for the things that you don't know. And there's no other insurance in the world that we deal with that's like that. So that's a really big part of the problem. And so the thing that we do that makes this unique is, of course, we allow them to have whatever network, whatever doctors they have. But ultimately, what we're able to do is to give credit where credit's due and to kind of look at this proactively versus reactively. And so it's one part of it being that we allow the employer to have a true financial vested interest in what they're actually doing. And so unlike plans where you're just throwing money away, if the employer's not using the plan or they're overall healthy, then they actually get money back at the end of the year to kind of reward that financial benefit that everyone shares in, right? And the worst case scenario is it's never going to cost them more money, right? Like your current price that you have right now for health insurance is the most expensive worst case scenario, and it could only get better with more information. So that's my short version of kind of how I think what people need to be looking out for and kind of what other options there are with that.
I understand, and that is certainly fits the one size fit all plan that so frequently happens. And I know when we worked with you to get that census to go into it, you guys do a complete deep dive. You get into the client, you get into their information, and you give them an option. They may have a preferred vendor, but you give them their preferred vendor and an option to it, and then they can make a monetary decision on that. Also, you give them coverage things, which all brokers do. But after you've done the detail you've done, then you go one step further, and that's I did this in 1987 thinking I was really smart doing it, but it was everywhere. And that's the reinsurance process that you guys work with. And when I see that that's going to be in the smaller companies, explain how a Forticare goes at an insurance policy versus 95% of the other insurance companies that walk in and give them a price.
Yeah, so kind of like I was saying before, and it's a great question, Paul. When you're getting a rate, and again, maybe a good example is kind of maybe if you've ever shopped for life insurance, just to make it really simple, there's two different plans. There's a guaranteed issue plan, which accounts for anybody, no matter who you are. You could be on your deathbed with 2 weeks to live, and you'd pay a very high price for a very low amount of coverage, right? And there's maybe what you've seen before, where you could kind of get like an underwritten life insurance where you maybe answer some health questions. You might take like a paramed exam, right? And kind of give you like a mini physical, right? And again, it's one of those things where if the worst case scenario is a guaranteed issue plan, and somewhere in the middle of that is maybe somebody that has maybe some health issues or whatever, but they're not terminally ill, that's what that whole idea is, the exercise is for. And so we're effectively doing that for a group where we're saying we're looking at this on a 5 and 10 year basis. We're not giving you a price that's subject to change. We're basically making sure that the rate that you're getting with the entire population of your employees, and everybody still, of course, is retained. All pre-existing conditions are covered. So it's not to exclude people. It's to basically give a more forward-facing look of what this is and accurately price it. And with that same step, though, stepping in and finding if there are really, really expensive medications that we can get at better prices, or other locations that maybe there are surgeries that might be $80,000, and the same thing you could get with a extremely high rated doctor, and just knowing that there's other options out there, that maybe the same surgery costs 15,000. And that's a very common differentiation between different doctors. And so it's about, if you as a customer are looking out for the overall plan and spend, that's the kind of things you can do very easily. That, again, we're doing all the back end work for you, but it's just the idea is it's, again, this upfront common sense way that all other insurance has always been done the entire history of mankind.
Well, I've come to know that you're very competitive. And if you can't get it to a better price, you try to dive deeper to get there. And I think that falls into your personal character. I become aware of the fact from your Ironman stuff. I didn't realize you were a 5-time Ironman, and that means I guess you actually finished it, which is something to say in itself. So I think you have a similar discipline in driving this business, like an Ironman business. The real question is how close did you come to be the first one in, and how far away from the last one?
Well, pretty much as long as you don't finish last. But even those people that do finish last, I think it's an incredible story, though. And it's very common where, like, that very last person, you'll see it's one of the most special events of every race, because like every single person is cheering for them, and making sure that they're getting in that last, like, sometimes it's within 5 or 10 seconds of them finishing. And I think at the end of the day, right, it's not about even the time that you do, it's about just the dedication you've put into the preparation of that. And I think you could say the same thing with just never wanting to lose, I guess, when it comes to kind of rates and stuff on the premium side. And I think it's like when you have somebody who takes the time out of their day, and is genuinely, wanting to be a better company, provide better benefits, the least we can do is provide the knowledge and kind of the support that we have to help them with that. And I think that's, I love the point you made, Paulo, where it's about winning, but wanting to win for the right reasons and win with the right people.
Absolutely. And you do that, you drive. Well, I don't want to talk about driving, but with the time we were out on the course,
statute of limitations hasn't worn off on that yet. Yeah. So if you,
I came in, I thought I had a great average time on those laps, and then I came in like 23rd out of the group. And you came in first, a good 12 seconds per lap faster than I did. And I'm going, I thought I was a decent driver, but you drive to win, but you also drive to do it the right way. And then that you take that into your business. I love that. I also, you work in a lot of charity things too. You take what comes into the business, you try to go back out to help other people. And that's one of the things that helps me love working with you is it's not all about whiffle. What's in it for me? That's an expression that I'll have to say for a lot of time in my year, every time I talk to somebody, it was whiffle. What's in it for me? And I have to tell you, it's a pleasure to work with you, Steven, because you don't come from that mindset. You've raised almost $14 million for charities, in addition to building a great business for 27,000 people. And part of that comes into how you run your business. Talk to us about broker bias, what you run into when you're having to go up against other insurance companies out there.
Well, and I'd say, Paul, you and Tricia, from just obviously known you for years, and Tricia, you guys have been so good at doing that too, and again creating that atmosphere of just everybody winning together, and that really at the end of the day, it's like nobody truly cares about what you do or what I do, right? It's about like, are there things that benefit everybody, and can you all work together? And so I think that's a total testament to what you guys are, what you guys stand for. It's why I'm so attracted to what you guys are building too. And I think at the end of the day, it's about, when you're giving back and you're trying to, look beyond yourself, the things you get from that, whatever thing you could buy, the dopamine hit that I've seen, that when it comes from helping other people, seeing that impact you make in the world. Like, as we were talking about earlier, I got back from Africa for 3 weeks, and just be able to help some of those people be able to kind of build a whole system that's sustainable, and seeing the gratitude from that, like, whatever life that we're living, there's so much humility that comes with realizing how great we have it, no matter how bad, today or this year might seem. And I think that's one of the most important things, because without that different perspective, you don't understand how wonderful, so many things in our life actually is working. And so again, that's, I guess, my take on that. But again, you guys have been leaders in that space and giving as generously as possible. And I, again, can't thank enough the best of you for doing that too.
Well, the other thing that follows on, and exactly in the line of what you're saying, not only do you save them money, but you stay with the client. You take care of the client. Of every client that you've stepped into with our organization, you're still there. They don't, and no one else can hit your prices to begin with. And the way you do your pricing, if it goes up 30% at the base with your reinsurance, that's only a portion of what goes up. And that allows that company not to take the full hit every single year, and it just compounds as a savings. But you take care of your clients, you constantly reshop, you constantly go back out there. And if I'm going to recommend anybody, you particularly, I want them to actually take care of the client. And I'm going to say, I want to thank you for always taking care of your clients. So let's go into employee distrust. They get into that stuff. They've got their insurance. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything about your company. They just know they work for a company that gives them an opportunity for insurance. So let's talk about the employee distrust when something's not done properly.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Paul. Most of that distrust really comes to the employees, how they view the employer that they work for. And a lot of times, right, it could be, some wage cuts, it could be laying people off. It's kind of the uncertainty of maybe the workforce. And so by offering benefits where the employer is kind of really taking a proactive step to really look out for the people, that's one of the best ways to retain people. And I've seen people, take a $10,000 a year pay cut, just get benefits because maybe their health insurance alone is 15, 20,000 a year. And so I think by looking at kind of ways beyond just throwing money at people and kind of those intangibles, that experience that having that peace of mind kind of provides, again, a lot of the other benefits that we also include for free are things like where they have unlimited access to like uncapped mental health for themselves, their children, their family. So it could be everything from marriage counseling to childhood psychology. Maybe their children are getting bullied at school, having somebody to talk to every single day for hours at a time. For that, everything from PTSD to trauma to substance abuse, things that people are going through, and a lot of times just needing the ability to talk to somebody is a really, really big thing. And it's an extremely expensive benefit, but the ROI on that for everyone is tremendous. And there's probably nothing more important than having access to, especially that mental health nowadays. And so that's one of the ways where, again, it would put, we'll almost call it like a golden handcuffs kind of approach, where like to lose that benefit and to leave that employer to go somewhere else would never be able to replace kind of what that experience is. And so that's just one of many examples of kind of how to help with that tremendously.
Well, thank you for stepping into there because, as you know, we take Champion Insurance out, which is bolted on to many of your products there to where they have this. It actually, they get it for basically, they save money. They don't pay anything for it when it's bolted on, and they save money if they'll take advantage of it and use it. And it helps every single employee go with that. So I want to thank you for that. We still do it and love that program. We have it in our own company. And you know, those are the pieces that a company appreciates. We not only save insurance, but then you find ways for us to save cost of the employee cost itself. So we can talk about that forever, but you know, that's one of those things. You know, one of the things, let's talk about the HR overload. So many companies, it's a major process to even consider changing, and they dread even going out for pricing and dread the change. Talk about what you guys do to come in to alleviate that HR overload when your company comes in.
Yeah, and if I can just kind of go back to one of the points you made, just to kind of clarify kind of maybe the value add in this. And so the idea is that there's a group major medical plan established, and this additional champion program that we talked about is basically helping offload a tremendous amount of all the claims, the urgent care, the primary care, the prescriptions, the mental health, and all the different things that are one of the biggest cost drivers to the plan. And so, simply put, the idea is that when you offer a benefit and you offer it just like you would with major medical as a pre-tax deduction, the taxes saved on the employer and employee level basically help subsidize some of that cost of the overall programs. And so by saving some taxes, offloading these claims, yeah, it becomes in many cases a very low new benefit if you're going to basically, if you've never offered benefits, to add something like that on there, and again, make it a sustainable thing on there. And so when it comes to HR, it's that same thing, right? Where you're maybe adding a new benefit that didn't exist before, and realizing that the entire payroll team were there to support the whole hand holding through the whole process of it. And at the end of the day, it's a deduction that HR has, it's a new benefit that's there. And again, we always try to make sure that the employees are basically reaching out and calling us, because again, that's what we're designed for. We're the experts on that. And the HRs has so many different tasks on their plate. To have to be an expert at that is just more educating the employee on the system, the steps to take when there's a question.
And then from the CFO side of that, I translate that into and have seen the result of companies that put it in place can reduce the claims against the primary group insurance, which reduces the loss runs for those insurance companies, which reduces the increases that those companies get. So it's a waterfall effect that it's hard to explain to somebody, but you actually can reduce your insurance just by using this other product on top of it for the benefits, while the employee gets all the benefits and the employer gets the appreciation for taking care of them. So it's kind of like that, the broken incentives. If you don't have something to help them that rewards the outcome, they're going to use it and maybe abuse it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So again, just maybe another way to look at it is when the taxes saved by kind of offering a new benefit are equaling the cost, or in many cases larger than the cost of kind of a way to help again, offload these other claims, right? So the idea is that we go back to that sustainability idea where you have a group major medical plan. Why are they going up every single year? It's because there's no checks and balances. There's nothing to incentivize smart activity and how to use the benefits, right? And so if we can give the employees financial incentive to say, hey, these are providers you can use and they're unlimited, they're free, and they're $0 copays. Of course, the employees are on board, and the employer, of course, benefits because, of course, then it's not hitting those claims that ultimately are the reason that you have that renewal at the end of the year in double digits.
Well, you've been a unique friend, a unique person. There's one more thing that I have to ask you about. You know, I've jokingly said this when you shared the fact that you and Lonnie are planning to get married in space. When is the anticipated date of that?
Well, it's kind of one of those things I guess we've talked about before. If just wanting to kind of live life in a way that's worth remembering, right? And the best answer I've gotten from these guys is the the Ocean Gate, which of course isn't a laughing thing, where the people went down and tried going to a place that was kind of difficult to get to. And then the space is kind of the same thing too. And so I think they're trying to make sure it's like ultra super safe. But as of now, it should be sometime next year this time, and it'd be about 17 hours. You basically get to see like the sunrise and the sunset, all like the crews getting ordained and everything. So as of now, it'd be the very first people in human history to ever have that happen. So fingers crossed for it working and getting back safe as well.
Well, yeah, I never did hear the answer. Do you have to be flying over the U.S. for it to be recognized in the U.S. as an ordained wedding?
I think we'll hopefully never need to find out if it's enforceable or not.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You set a bar for us in so many ways, personally, with your company. And again, I just enjoy the friendship. Well, I'm going to open this up to the guys on the call here and see what kind of questions they have and see what we can do. Jason, what kind of questions do you have for this young man? We can both call him young.
Well, I've known Steven for a few years now, and Steven, I thought we were good friends until I saw the Green Bay stuff behind you, so we'll have to talk about that later.
I wanted to rub it in just so we're clear. So
I'm just kidding.
I take back all the good things I said about you too.
No, I'm on Champ myself, and Steven's helped me get one or two clients on it as well. So Steven, what's the hardest thing that people that you've seen have in kind of accepting the benefits of the plan? And when I say benefits, I mean the cost savings, because you remember you literally had to come into the office setting and sit down and show them on their pay stub what they were going to make. Why is it so hard for people to think that they can get something like this for essentially for free?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the business proposition is an incredible thing, and almost, I jokingly say, like this is one of those things where it's almost too good to be true. And my line is that, hey, if it's that good, what can we do to make it worse if it will make you feel better? And because at the end of the day, we are literally going in, and there's a greater savings between the payroll taxes, their benefits, the renewals, than the ultimate cost of the plan. And so the idea is that we're walking in and they're getting more money by saying yes to this and more benefits that didn't exist before. So it's an incredible ability that, again, lends itself to the whole concept, which is what it was created for, was to help offload claims off of one of their largest expenses they have in business. And so I think being able to go in there and actually sit down with every single employee and say, this is how it's going to help your health insurance premiums, how it's going to help your usage of it, and take the one that's either more money or less money and more benefits or no benefits, and you make that decision. And ultimately, it's a voluntary thing that they can make that decision on. But when you kind of, again, like you said, you kind of simplify it for them, it's a really, really no-brainer process.
So a funny story, the one the first client that we did, he came in and I didn't realize, but probably 80-90% of the staff is warehouse staff, and they're Spanish speaking. So we had to find an interpreter that would go back and forth with Steven, which even made it more complicated, but we were able to get it done.
Steven, you don't
Yeah,
speak Spanish?
What were you saying, Paul?
I said, you don't speak Spanish?
See.
I see that as another challenge for you to take on and accomplish.
All right, I'll do it with you. We'll do some Duolingo. We can have our semi-daily streaks. We can get. That'll be our new competition.
All right. Well, one of the things, and I'm just perceiving this from my own marketing standpoint, and I don't know if this can be helpful to us as a group, but there a lot of things are polls and things that go out on LinkedIn. And if you go out there and said, would you want a benefit that for your medical expenses, that reduce your medical expenses, and they paid you to do it, would you be interested? I mean, think about that for a minute. They actually save money to take this out physically. They get money back to do it in taxes, doesn't come from the insurance company. And then they get co-pays paid, or they get emergency care paid. Somehow this needs to be translated from us to everybody out there, from every company that we deal with. I mean, this is something like, from Tricia's standpoint, getting Champion out to the membership of C-Suite Network. They just don't know. So now my interpretation, get me on the right numbers here, but they're going to receive back, depending on their income, up to maybe $700 a year that's paid to them to take this out. The employers are going to save that or more, not even thinking about the savings of the insurance product itself, and get all of these coverages for free. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think you're maybe downplaying it a little bit. I'd say for our average group that has major medical embedded with it, I'd say the net yearly profit on this is about $5,000 per W-2 per year per person. And that's a combination of what they're dollar for dollar literally directly saving off their premiums, and what the employees are ultimately seeing as a net increase in pay. And the whole idea behind this is, right, as a business owner, when you offer access to coverage and the employee pays for those benefits, there's a reduction in tax that the employer and the employee pay. And most groups already have this in force, right? So there's nothing, it's not a new concept that's happening. It's just basically a way to realize that, yes, I'm paying for a benefit, but ultimately my savings in other aspects of what this is greater than actually the cost of offering it. And it's a profound way to look at it. But when you look at a lot of the health insurance brokers we work with, a lot of, with you guys, fractional CFOs, other tax professionals, CPAs, at the end of the day, there's a cost for what we're doing. And when you can step in and provide something that basically covers that cost. And so kind of the talking point is that, to take on a fractional CFO, right, isn't typically cheap. But if the savings on this can dwarf with that cost, effectively now they're basically getting you, Paul, and they're actually getting a net overall savings on their overall stuff, having kind of used our solution and what your solution is combined. And that's what's I love about this, and I love about what's working with you guys too.
Oh, I appreciate that. And obviously we're trying to go in to make sure that they have a return on investment in us greater than the cost for us. So that's our effort. That's one of our go-to plans for taking into all of our clients. And Jacob, do you have any questions to step forward with Steven on?
Yeah, I am curious if you've had any competitors kind of target, similar price points to y'all, and how y'all bounced back and handled that, if it happened at all.
Yeah, not to get too kind of crazy down the rabbit hole, but I'll give you a really good answer to that. Is insurance companies, they have a certain profit margin which they can't make more than that. So let's just say, for example, your premium was $1,000 a month, right, for every single person in the entire US, and they had very little claims ever happen. the insurance company can't actually make like unlimited profit on that money. There's a very small margin that they can actually take. And so the idea is with health insurance, the cost of things, right? Hospital expenses and everything going up every year, the greater that number is, the greater spread of dollars that they get, although the percentage is the same. And so that's part of kind of the known conspiracy that nobody's really debating, is that number. And so the idea is that we're looking from a perspective of common sense underwriting and how all other things work, like math, and that kind of being the counter of the trend that it's going. So that's probably the best answer. Maybe you learned
Gotcha.
something new that
Yeah.
Part of the problem I guess we're dealing with right now too.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right, Tricia, do you have some thoughts to glean from Steven here, and how this might can work with C-Suite Network members here?
Well, I'm excited about more conversation around that, and we have a lot of things in the works. So really excited about that. And Stephen, I'm gonna go out to a much bigger picture, because Paul was teasing you about being a younger man. And there's no jealousy in that you have decades still to disrupt and create opportunity. Oh, there we go. I wasn't sure if I lost you there. And so my question is very much about your leadership. So you've created this this business, had tremendous success, and I'm going to use one of my very favorite words, which is disruption. You're disrupting, and you're trying to communicate a message that you can get into that sounds too good to be true. But at the end of the day, it's because it's massively disruptive to the sort of old framework or the old model. And this is where Paul, of course, is a millennial, despite the young man jokes, because he understands the value of what you're doing to capture the disruption and create opportunity and tremendous success. So I'd love for you to share what that looks like as a business owner and leader, and what your advice would be, or your counsel to others who are wanting to, or maybe stressed by the challenges, the disruptions in the market, and how you're framing to capture that as an opportunity, not just the challenge.
Sure. No, and I appreciate the question too, Tricia. The best way I look at this is whatever business you're doing, whatever venture you're going out with, always stressing that just because something's different won't always make it better, but to be better, it always has to be different. And that sets you apart from a marketing thing. It sets you apart where how many people, do real estate, how many people sell insurance, right? And so when you're doing the same thing everybody else does, you'll probably do fine, but you won't change the world. You won't change your life in a way that generations will be affected by just doing what everyone else is kind of doing and stepping in line with, right? And so it's these other ideas, kind of, again, that disruption. But I think part of it, if there's one thing I guess I'd say that's the greatest key to that success, is literally like what you and Paul and Jacob are based on, which is finding ways to help people first. And then there might be something in it for you at the end of the day, right? Is like walking in, it's far easier to walk into a business and say, how can I help you? How can we work together? How can I bring mutual clients in? And then, because how many other people do that? How many other people are jumping with their cold call thing, is saying, how can I maybe, find a client for you first? And you guys are one of the best I've ever seen at that. And I think that's the best places to always start, and make sure you're always kind of finishing there too.
I so appreciate you sharing that, Stephen. And I know, Paul literally lives by that. Jacob lives by that. And of course, it's the whole mandate of C-Suite. I'm curious what your thoughts are now as we get into the whole AI disruption, and what that's going to mean for things like, employee benefits, and what it's going to do to the workforce and all of those kinds of things. How are you thinking about that disruption and what it's going to look like in a few years and maybe a little longer?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something that everybody's worried about, but I think if you're worried about that, I think it means that maybe deep down you realize that what you're doing isn't unique, and if it's a duplicated, replicatable thing. And a really good example of that would be like there was a job site or a construction site where there was people that were really upset about like when a backhoe was created, or basically, like cars were created, right? And so they were upset that, hey, you're going to take our jobs by having a bulldozer come in instead of using shovels. And the foreman said, well, if you want, we can use teaspoons to dig the hole, so we'd have even more jobs, right? And it's not about having a better, like, just because there's a better, more efficient thing doesn't mean that people are being negatively affected. I don't think anyone looks now and says, I wish we didn't have machines to build buildings, right? And I think that AI will do something similar. So you might need to adjust or whatever, but at the end of the day, the core part of it, it's about people. And I don't think a relationship that you'll have with an AI chat thing will be able to replace like the personal and family experiences that, me and Paul have had. And I think that's the job security in itself, about just being a good person and being something that just is fun to be around, is almost maybe the most understated thing that will probably not be replaced for hopefully a while still.
All right. Well, I'd like to touch on something that I thought about. When we did our first podcast years ago, I don't know if you remember, the gentleman that we were talking to owned a group of WeWork type locations,
Okay.
companies that maintained and handled office sharing spaces. And we got into the conversation, and I said to you, now, okay, you've got a program, and I understand you can put it in for 1099 employees. Can this guy that owns this WeWorks, that has all of these single type of people that are working alone, whatever, can they go through this guy and get an insurance policy to where he gets a golden handcuff of a sort? He doesn't pay for anything for it, but he's providing the service. And I wanted to circle that back, because now this comes back again to the C-suite network and the quantity of people that are on their own trying to find insurance and don't really have a market to go to. I wanted to circle it because this is an 8-year-old question. You did it then. Do you do it now? And tell us about it.
We do it now and we even do it a lot better. And so I'll speak on kind of what we've done for the C-suite network. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we have millions of clients now that are part of kind of, we'll call it one large group plan. And so the purpose of this plan is to allow independent contractors or one-off people, or maybe independent business owners, to effectively join and truly actually become an actual employee of this company that we've set up. And the idea is that they actually truly get a W-2, a W-9 at the end of the year. And so what that allows us to do is actually allow them to hire them on as a true employee, and that allows them to get access to rates at an unbelievable price point, far better than the ACA marketplace, far better than maybe other options they'd have on their own. And so through kind of having the network with you, that's a huge topic, and it's a huge value that you can add under the same principles we talked about, but for a simple one-off person. So that's the high level part of what it is. And it's a huge benefit with that. And we're talking like a $500 annual deductible for the entire year, being in that like $300 range is kind of what we're looking at for what that results in.
All right. Now, Tricia, did you hear that? Most of the people we have in C-Suite Network are probably paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month for their own personal insurance. And this is something in the people that we work for. I have to ask the question, how does that particular 1099 program, or employees, 1099s that are turned into employees, how does that work with pre-existing conditions? Is that still something they have to overcome?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, right, there's two different buckets that people have, right? And of course, we already know the bucket that exists, right? Which would be, we'll just call it like the ACA marketplace, where again, you could join regardless of your health conditions, you're guaranteed the coverage, and you have whatever price, and there may or may not be subsidies attached to it, dependent income and whatever happens with this whole government thing, right? And the idea is that a lot of times people that are kind of seeing this are freaking out and saying, I used to be paying $0 a month, or I used to pay $50 a month, and now I'm paying $800 a month. Why is that? Well, it always costs $800 a month. You just had someone else paying for it. right? And so kind of when people leave their job, right, they're like, oh, why is my Cobra so expensive? It's because your employer is paying 90% of your premium, right? And so what those plans didn't change, but it again caused people to look at this as a perspective. I can do this plan that's still available, and if you have pre-existing conditions, that's probably going to be your best option for it. And this is just a second option that may not have existed for most people in their lifetime, that you could also have the ability to apply for a plan that you have one time in your life you need to qualify. And as soon as you are able to qualify, and again, we're just talking about no major catastrophic known conditions that are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars the next month that you buy this, then you keep the policy for life. Everything's covered, and you have an incredible plan and price point based on that one thing. So what this operates in is that, with underwriting up front, it results in a massive benefit of a great price point and a great super low premium. And that's really the only thing that comes down to.
And I translate that into about 10,000 new customers from you for a C-suite network of these folks that they just don't know. And that's what I want to try to get the message out. And that's what Tricia and I have been talking about in the Finance Council and in some of the other areas we're doing with C-Suite Network in total. A great organization. And I love the fact that you're desirous to be part of that and see what we can do from there. Tricia, do you want to close us out?
I would love to. And again, thank you so much for this conversation. I think, I loved your answer, by the way, Stephen, because there is the business and the expertise that we have, but it's also the relationships of how we're caring for each other. I'll frequently say, Paul, you know this with Hero Club, you have that conversation. And the conversation is the one you would have with your parent or your sibling or your child, to say, you're interested in that. Here's the things I'd watch out for. Here are the things that are really incredibly powerful and incredibly valuable. Not, let me sell you something because I have it to sell. And I just think it is where all great things come from, and it is irreplaceable. Having said that, I will say, it's deeply concerning that in Japan there are a lot of adults in relationships openly with AI tools. Did you know this? It's a real thing.
And Paul, make sure your wife watches out. That's coming for you too, maybe.
So anyway, it's a real thing. It's so interesting. Anyway, there is no replacing the real, and that's another part of the whole dynamic of how we are in person together. So looking forward to being together in person in Dallas next week. Of course, we have our mixer on the third Wednesday, always in Dallas, second Tuesday in Phoenix, fourth Tuesday in New York, and then we're heading into the holiday season. So make sure you sign up for the C-Suite Support Council. We want to make sure that we have everybody joining into this conversation and being showcased, so we can show the excellence and have these conversations so that we're well informed, at least to ask the right questions. And I think that's so powerful in terms of, Paul, what you were sharing and making sure I was zoning in on as the CEO of C-Suite Network. And I really appreciate that. Every Friday night, we have our virtual get together for Celebrate. So come on out, say hello, celebrate the wins of the week. And some weeks are a little more challenging than others. We got a bit of a shoulder for those weeks that are a little tougher. And can't wait to see you soon in the C-Suite. Thank you so much, gentlemen.